Hello, welcome back to our channel. Let's make a prediction together about how Kat will maneuver when Chelsea and Madison get married. Kat has always thought of herself as someone who knows how to calculate every move, but the closer it gets to the day Chelsea puts on her wedding dress, the more that confidence feels like a thin layer of powder barely covering the panic spreading beneath her skin. Fairmont Crest has never been kind to people caught in the middle, and Kat knows that well. In a world of contracts, exclusive invitations, and locked security gates, anyone who fails to choose a position in time gets pushed to the margins so quickly they barely realize it's happening. Chelsea is stepping into a new chapter with everything this place values most: a blessed marriage, a new home, a carefully mapped out stable future. Kat looks at all of it and cannot silence the small but relentless question in her mind when Chelsea leaves. What will she be in the home they once shared, in the relationships they built together, in the power structure she has only ever managed to cling to from the edges? The door to someone else's future is closing behind them, and Kat is sent to realize she does not hold a matching key to her own. She thinks of Tomas as if he were a safe harbor, and then immediately hates herself for it. He is not an emergency exit. He is the man who once made her a sincere offer. The man who quietly endured her rejection before when she said she was not ready, when she used work as an excuse, when she said she did not want to be tied down. Those excuses sounded reasonable at the time, but now they echo in her memory like small blades stabbing at her own pride. She remembers the look in Tomas's eyes then, the strained smile, the nod that pretended to respect her decision, while behind it sat a hurt she chose to ignore. Kat believed that if she kept everything unresolved, she would never have to truly answer to anyone. But now, as everything around her begins to change at dizzying speed, that unresolved space comes back and tightens around her throat harder than any commitment ever could. While Chelsea loses herself in dress fittings, flower choices, and menu planning, Kat quietly counts down the nights she still gets to be considered part of that shared space. Every box that gets packed, every item Chelsea moves into the new house, is a reminder that Kat's place is shrinking. She finds herself wandering around the apartment like a ghost, touching the walls, the picture frames, the corners of the kitchen they once shared, angry and wounded at once, panicked by the future and burning with the feeling of being left behind. She tells herself that asking to move in with Tomas is about love, that it is simply time to be serious with the man. But the closer she gets to saying the words, the less she can tell what is real feeling and what is fear of being pushed out of her comfort zone. That very confusion is what unravels her composure, and lack of composure is exactly what Fairmont Crest punishes most harshly. When Kat finally stands in front of Tomas, they face each other in a familiar room that suddenly feels too small. She has prepared a confident look, a calm posture, trying to hide the heart pounding inside her chest. She brings up the idea of living together, trying to keep her voice steady, trying to make it sound like anything but a rushed cry for help. But what meets her is not warmth or relief. It is a flicker of shock mixed with suspicion in Tomas's eyes. He stays quiet just long enough for the calm mask on her face to begin cracking, just long enough for every fear she has buried to rise to the surface. When he finally speaks, his question is not only words. It is the entire memory of being rejected before returning at once, along with every moment he felt like a backup plan. He wants to know whether she is coming to him because she has nowhere else to go, because Chelsea is about to leave, because of an empty apartment rather than a heart that truly knows who it needs. In Tomas's eyes, the timing of Kat's request is a confession without language. He has lived in this community long enough to understand that decisions here are rarely pure matters of the heart. When Chelsea announced the wedding and her plan to move out, Tomas had been quietly counting every shift in Kat. He noticed every time she went silent longer than usual when the future came up, every time she looked at her phone and turned the screen off instead of answering, every vague shrug when someone asked where she would live next. All of it came together into a picture he could no longer avoid. He was the only person close enough to rescue her from the feeling of abandonment. and also the only person who loved her enough to accept half reasons. But his love is no longer unconditional. The pain of having been turned down is still there, low and constant, clinging to the memory of nights spent waiting for a message that never came. Of watching Kat choose the safety of distance instead of stepping toward him. When Tomas confronts her, he does not yell, he does not throw his hands around, but there is a blade edge in the way he looks at her. He reminds her, with chilling calm, of how he once asked her to move in and how she told him it was not the right time. He speaks about what it felt like to be the man who only gets considered after every other door has closed. He does not need harsh words. His composure alone makes Kat feel stripped bare, as if every motive she tried to protect has been exposed. She hears him ask if she sees him as the only option left, and the question lands exactly where she always avoids looking. She knows on some level, he has touched her weakest point. The fear she carries is not only fear of losing a place to live. It is fear of being left alone in a world designed for couples, for solid alliances, not for people like her who have spent so long standing at the edge. Kat reacts on instinct before reason can intervene. She feels herself raising a wall of pride, denying what he says, trying to prove it is all a misunderstanding, that she came to him because of love. But the harder she tries to explain, the more she hears the weakness in her own argument. She talks about changes in her heart, about watching Chelsea step toward marriage and realizing something, about wanting to build something stable. The problem is that all of it comes after the wound she left behind, after nights Tomas lay awake wondering why he was never enough for her to choose. Every sentence she offers sounds to him like an attempt to seal a crack with promises that arrive too late. And when he refuses her, there is not only anger in his eyes, but the exhaustion of someone who has compromised with his own pain too many times. He tells her he does not want to be anyone's temporary shelter, even if that person is the one he loves. That sentence, delivered in cold, controlled words, slams shut a door Kat thought she could still run through. After leaving Tomas, Kat does not cry. To her, tears are a luxury only people who have not been crushed by life can afford. She walks through the flawless streets of Fairmont Crest, where the warmly lit houses look like advertisement photographs, while a storm grows stronger inside her head. Part of her wants to scream that Tomas was cruel, that he was only using the past to punish her. But another part, deeper and harder to admit, knows he is only protecting the last piece of pride she has tested too many times. Kat stands between those two currents, angry and ashamed, wanting to go back and tear down the wall rising between them, while also wanting to cut every tie so she will not have to face what Tomas saw in her more clearly than she sees in herself. In the days that follow, Chelsea is so busy she barely notices the change in her friend's eyes. Calls, emails, and wedding messages fill the bride's schedule while Kat lingers at the edge, watching guest lists, seating charts sketched out, erased, and redrawn. One evening, by accident, Kat overhears Chelsea talking to her fiancé in the kitchen about transferring the current apartment after the wedding. Chelsea mentions Kat casually, as if discussing a logistics detail that needs to be handled, not a person with feelings. She says Kat will probably find somewhere else, that Kat always knows how to manage, that maybe it is time for everyone to go their own way. The words are not malicious, but they hit Kat's ears like a sentence. She realizes that in the eyes of people protected by this system, she is only a temporary resident, a shadow attached to the picture, something that can be removed without ruining the frame. That realization gives rise to a new anger in Kat, darker than before. It is not only aimed at Tomas for rejecting her, or at Chelsea for unknowingly pushing her aside, but at herself for staying in that position so long. She begins to look at every relationship around her as a power transaction, a place where the person with the stronger footing decides where the other one stands. If Tomas can raise his voice to defend his pride, if Chelsea can redraw her life with such confidence without asking her, then Kat will no longer be passive in anyone's decision. The thought opens a new path in her mind. If Fairmont Crest runs on schemes and compromises, then she will play by those rules and stop letting raw emotion lead her. From someone begging to be chosen, Kot slowly turns herself into someone willing to create options. She starts showing up more often at parties and networking events, refining her image, not to forget Tomas, but to remind herself she does not depend on one man to survive. Yet beneath it all, every smile, every handshake, every glance she gives someone else is colored by the pain of being doubted. Part of her wants to prove to Tomas that he was wrong to think she came to him only because she had run out of exits. Another part wants to prove to herself that if he does not want her, she can still stand on her own. That resistance may look healthy on the surface, but it is fed by hurt, and slowly it slips into a dangerous extreme. Kot begins to see making Tomas jealous, making Chelsea uneasy, making everyone around her look at her again as a way to take back control. Meanwhile, Tomas is not at peace with his decision either. Every time he sees Kot from a distance, standing in a group of strangers, he feels both proud and irritated. He knows Kot carries the kind of energy that demands attention, but now the thought of her directing all that magnetism at someone else unsettles him. Even so, he forces himself not to walk over. He keeps repeating that if he gives in too soon, he will become the old version of himself again. The man who waits with fragile hope that one day Kot will see his worth without circumstances pushing her toward him. Keeping his distance becomes a constant internal war. On one side, feelings that remain intact. On the other, fear of being hurt all over again. The harder Tomas fights the urge to go to Kot, the more he reads everything she does as part of a hidden battle. If she laughs with someone, he sees defiance. If she looks away after catching his eyes, he sees punishment. They are both trapped in a chess game neither will admit started with the wrong first move. People around them begin noticing the cold distance, conversations stopping halfway when one of them appears. Quick exchanged glances measuring how far this silent war has gone. The atmosphere of Fairmont Crest, already thick with secrets and comparisons, grows even tighter. Kot and Tomas do not need shouting or dramatic confrontations. Their silence and the choices they make each day are enough to turn every shared space into a battlefield. Every time Kot decides to stay longer at a party instead of leaving early like she used to, it becomes an unspoken declaration that she is no longer tying herself to anyone else's rhythm. Every time Tomas deliberately keeps his distance, focusing on work or other relationships, it is his way of answering that he, too, can exist without her validation. They are both charging deeper into a war of pride neither one wants to lose. At the bottom of their anger and their silent mind games lies one uncomfortable truth. If no feelings were left, they would have walked away from each other easily. It is because they still love each other that they have enough weapons to hurt each other so deeply. And because they still love each other, every scheme they create to protect themselves carries the seed of self-destruction. The more Kot tries to prove Tomas is only one option among many, the louder the voice inside her becomes, telling her he is the only person she ever truly wanted to build something lasting with. The more Tomas tries to prove he will not be anyone's backup plan, the more he binds himself to watching every step she takes, searching for proof that she really sees him that way. As the day Chelsea moves out draws near, the difficult decisions both Kot and Tomas have been avoiding begin to take shape. Kot is forced to choose between protecting the new pride she has built and continuing this dangerous game of strategy, or lowering her ego and, for the first time, speaking plainly about her fear of being abandoned, about wanting Tomas not as a shelter, but as a true partner. Tomas must also ask himself whether he has the courage to open the door again to the person who once hurt him, or whether he will let fear of repeating the past push him into the loneliness he keeps insisting is his choice. The door to the future for both of them is not just the answer to a rejected invitation to move in together. It is the answer to a deeper question. Will they keep letting Fairmont Crest define their worth by whether someone stands beside them, or will they dare to break the cruel rules of this place? The day Chelsea leaves, the apartment will become empty in the literal sense, but the truly frightening emptiness will be the one between Kot and Tomas, where old wounds, defensive schemes, and new pride collide without mercy. There is no wedding, no contract, only to people standing on the edge between a new beginning and a breakup that cannot be repaired. And they must decide for themselves whether they will keep pushing each other over or finally take each other's hand before it is too late.